Hello, everyone. We are a bit behind. Happy 2026 and happy episode 124 of the Strip Poker Night at the Inventory podcast, in which we have yet to cover the September sleepover event, let alone November's. We've got a lot to catch up on, so we're going to get right into it. I'm your host, spnanon, here with my co-host, Nord. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Nord, as according to the Snapplecap facts and trivia.
As well as brand new guest and new dev from last year, whose projects we'll be discussing. Two of them. One this episode, one in the next episode. Say hello to Cinnayanny.
Hello, I'm Cinna.
So when did you join? When did you start deving for the game? And can you give a little rundown of the projects you've contributed to? Although we will talk about them in more detail.
I started in August. The way I started was honestly pretty funny. During the height of the game censorship, I found this one on itch.io and submitted it to a preservation website. And then I read the FAQ and saw anyone can start deving, and I was like, cool, I guess I'll do that. And so I started on Vinestaff, whose history I'll explain more in her section. I've also done a bit of work on Janetta, along with a few things that we won't be discussing in the more recent episodes.
This is news to me. I didn't know you submitted SPNatI to itch.io game preservation. Fucking hello, base department?
Does that preserve a specific snapshot of it, or is it just the game link in general is now preserved forever?
Well, the old game link, it's preserved on a now dead website because itch.io figured out how they wanted to handle adult games. So I did net zero. Yippee!
Well, at least modern snapshots are unlike the com.game version, which is still stuck in like 2019, I think. Today we have Maya and Jura's buttholes saved and preserved if you take a snapshot today. So everything's fine and dandy. As for some of the newer characters, I don't know.
It's also a couple of versions on Newgrounds, if I remember.
I haven't touched those. Not in a while. That's Arndress's wheelhouse. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we get into it? Anything about your experience as a recent dev?
It's fun. The community's a lot more welcoming and didn't laugh me out of the wheelhouse instantly, which I expected. So that's already a good sign.
Well, I mean, to rip the Band-Aid off here, your first character was a Roblox character, so I understand your trepidation. But I mean, this exact year, or maybe it was a little like late last year, we already accepted a Club Penguin character, so really the sky's the limit.
And then Roblox immediately became an awful platform, but that's not what we're getting into today.
Yes, SPNatI is much less rampant predators.
We don't give our players a selection menu of real people.
Okay. There's one more thing to get to before we get into the characters. We have a costume. We have one alt costume, one main roster release, and then one brand new testing roster character to talk about. Real quick though, we do have the host Shilling corner. I'm not sure what Nord is going to cover today, but we may have some overlap here because what I'm going to talk about is two new features that have been added to the game, or at least the dev or like the dev tools, which is alt costume or alt skin costume descriptions and other notes that you can add. So you can now actually like describe alt skins and like where they came from. And the players can see that in game when they switch to that costume. So they get a little more context as to like why this costume exists and what's different about it, aside from the visuals. Just kind of lead them in. It also helps devs as well if they want to target a costume, which doesn't happen too often. A lot of people don't do that very much. I try to, but sometimes it's hard if I don't really know like why a costume exists or why it was made. So that's in the character editor now, and you can also see for extended notes as well, and you can see the descriptions in game. And I also want to highlight hidden exceptions, which is a drum I've been banging for quite a while. That is, there are collectibles in the game, obviously. I think, is it still, I'm not sure, it may still be listed as in beta, but they've been around in a pretty finished state for a long time now. You know, you can unlock little collectibles, little thingamajigs for doing stuff in the game. And there are standard ones, and then there are secret ones, which do not appear in the menu. They only appear when you actually unlock them. And for a lot of people, or a lot of secret collectibles, it's based on like something that's seasonal, something that's not like available all the time. So it doesn't make sense to dangle that in front of the player's face if they can't get it easily. And that's what I used them for. Like I have collectibles for Maya and Jura for when you play a game with each of their alt skins. So if those alt skins are, if they're based on a holiday and they're not active all the time, then you or any kind of event, then you don't want them to be visible. And I was very annoyed by this because you had to manually, as a dev, make it visible and push an update whenever an event rolled around, and then you would have to, when the event ended, make it hidden again, or else players might get confused. So, I mean, you had to keep a tight schedule. And I wasn't always the best about that, and I felt it would make more sense if it was automatic, because it's meant to be tied to the costume's availability in the first place. And I had to bump that thread a lot in the feature discussion channel, because I'm not a coder. I don't care. I don't. You can miss me with that shit.
Well, you finally annoyed me enough into catching me when I was in a coding mood, so I just threw together a way of getting it to work. Essentially, a developer can define if the event itself has to be active, so like if it literally has to be Halloween or something, if you just need to have access to the costume in general, or if the like set of costumes has to be set to active. So for example, you can set it so that it shows up as long as the player has access to the costume in general. For example, if there's a different collectible that unlocks it, or if they're playing offline, they'd have access to the costumes year round, assuming they had the costumes all downloaded.
Yeah, it's very nice and flexible in that way, even if it's kind of like if it's a text-based implementation mostly. You had to walk me through it. But yeah, I don't know if you were going to cover this on your own, Nord, but it was kind of a dual effort between us. I was the idea guy, and Nord and little David pitched in to, actually do it and put it in the game. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I did have something else to cover as well, but I was going to mention those. Something that I got fully implemented thanks to Faraway Vision helping me out with the character editor code for it is that for collectibles, you can now set multiple images for the collectible to have a mini gallery that you can scroll through. One of the biggest examples that I've currently used this for my own character is with Simone, whom we'll talk about probably in the far future episode since he's on main now, but I used it as a chance to showcase all the interactions he has with other characters, or more specifically that other characters have with Buta. So you can essentially, I remember for a while there's been talk about what if you could unlock a gallery of images for characters to see a lot of their poses at any time you want outside the game, and this is a good way to do it, I feel like, because you can basically just set as many images as you want. I don't know if many people are even... It's sort of a low-key change, actually. I tried drawing attention to it when I unveiled the newest character editor versions, but I haven't heard of anyone else capitalizing on it just yet, so we'll just have to wait and see.
I did forget about it. I guess I didn't think of an immediate use for it. Obviously, you can just keep adding sexy poses or whatever you want. But hey, I'll try to get around to giving Maya and Jura some Buta love when I can. Cinnayanny, any thoughts on these new features?
I think the new features make it a lot easier to add multiple different images, so that if you're like, damn, I have a new idea for a new image, but I don't have any collectible space and it could fit in another one easily, you can just put it there. And I also think it's easier than the previous method, which looked like you just input them all manually.
There was also a prototype. Yeah, the code for this has been in the game for a while, but you had to edit the file directory directly in a text editor. I will also mention Mari from Omori had sort of a prototype idea of this, but that was literally just making use of the fact that Faraway Vision has his own domain name, so he just put in a hyperlink to a bunch of photos you can get for playing with Mari a lot.
That's always the evolution of these features, is that someone hard codes it manually into their behavior file. And then it steadily makes its way into like the game in some sense, and then eventually it gets character editor support.
And then just if I have like a minute left to shill some extra character stuff,
Sure.
go play with Zeke and Pandoria and select them last after you've selected everyone else, and you can see a shiny new pose where Zeke summons the sword that Pandoria creates. That's all. That's the shilling. Or play with
He
characters
doesn't
that
become the sword.
she doesn't become the sword. I got a bit tired of having to correct that in banter and not being able to demonstrate it, so now they can demonstrate it. You can also just go check out banter that Zeke and Pandy have, and maybe you'll come across it.
I'm picturing her like with her limbs tight to her side, like her face sticking out like
like-
triangular, like literally a sword, like the Luigi surfboard. He's just swinging her around. But yeah, I think it's time to get into it. If you're ready, we are going to start off with the deepest of topics that we are behind on. Which, I mean, the sleepover event comes around 3 times a year, and so far we don't seem to be doing a very good job keeping up with it, because we covered the May one, and two have passed since we last got a chance to cover the sleepover event. There's the September one and the November one. This is the September one. Now, the nice thing about it is because it comes up more than once throughout the year, you can't expect as many new costumes for each time that it rolls around. And indeed, we only got one new costume this time, but it was for Maniac, who has gotten a lot of new costumes. This is Maniac Hexxtra Sleepy Hex, and she appears to be in some combination of zip-up pajamas and a night mask, and almost made me think of like aviators and like a flight or like a biking jacket or something at first. But I mean, the rest of it is just sweatpants. I'm not really sure what it's based on. Be a good time to use costume descriptions. I don't think she has one yet, but that is what she is dressed in. Kind of loose-fitting, comfy pajamas that she's in. This is also a bit of a preview for when we cover her reaching the main roster, because she did do that last time we talked about her. She was on testing, but she has made it to main. So this is our first exposure to her on main, perhaps, for some of us. I, for one, think all of her costumes look pretty good, and her art looks pretty good in general. I will let Cinnayanny give his thoughts first, although, yeah, as Nord is noting here, it's a bayonet eye mask and a Shuppet shirt. So she's got the Hoenn Ghosts thing going on, even though she's from Kalos. Maniacs did debut in Gen 3, so there's that.
It was Bayonet, not Barnet. Why did I think it was Barnet? To be honest,
I also read it as Bayonet for a long time as a kid, and then it was like, wait, it's Bayonet. It's the same thing with Garbodor. You say Garbodor, and then someone says Garbodor, and you're like, oh fuck, I'm fucking stupid.
Wait, that's how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Garbodor. Get it? I mean, I can't really blame you for reading it, because it's not really it's not really natural to pronounce it that way. I cannot defend Ferrothorn, which they also throw out there. That's just wrong.
No, it's Ferrothorn.
Yeah, that one is definitely, it's Ferrothorn, but like the official pronunciation is Ferrothorn, apparently. Because I guess whoever did that one was stupid.
I'll basically just be recapping my notes, but first of all, to be completely honest, I don't like the jacket. I don't think the bright yellow works with her color scheme, and I think it becomes a far stronger design when she takes it off, especially after she takes off the sweatpants, because I think the colors match her more. This is more of a design critique, but the actual art of it is quite nice. I felt it was a bit odd that she gives you a collectible for getting her down one phase. I feel like that's a bit quick and it should happen after the game, but that's a very small thing. And last of all, I want to talk about this one pose in specific. It'll show up. I've pre-censored it for Solitaire's convenience. She takes off her tank top and none of her hair is visible, and that's not how shirts work. You should be able to see her hair. It doesn't just vanish, but God, I'm so negative. What the fuck? I do like her. I like the design more when she starts taking some of it off, but I like it.
You're not being too negative. Remember the last episode, I went off on a huge rant about how Angela was lame with her forfeit. Now we should change it all. You're fine. But did you have any other comments?
Honestly, no. I'm relatively neutral on Hex Maniac, but that's mostly because her archetype doesn't appeal to me specifically.
Her what type?
Her archetype.
Oh.
Well, the good news is, if you don't like this costume, SPNatI plans to do an alt cost, like a second alt costume for every event. So he's probably going to do a skinny sleepover costume in future. Maybe that'll be more to your liking. Unless you don't just her character archetype in general, in which case there's no salvation.
Yeah, there's no salvation for me.
Nord, what'd you think? I thought the design of the outfit was pretty cute. Now that it's pointed out, like, I actually... I don't have a strong opinion on the yellow of the jacket zipper. I thought it actually made like a decent contrast, but I guess you are right in it doesn't really complement the rest of the color scheme. In general, though, I thought it was a very cute design. In her dialogue, she even knows that she actually had to put more on because she wouldn't normally wear that much to bed. And I thought it was funny that she pointed out that she doesn't actually own a pair of slippers. I can't tell if that was just serendipity of not wanting to add another layer to the costume, or like I guess it just helps sell the idea that like this is how she probably would be if she was lounging in bed.
It is very bed-rotting core as an outfit.
I think Spook is very creative in that he's got actually he has like a Google Doc full of different costume ideas, and he's just been like narrowing them down one at a time. I think the winter costume was skinny Hex Maniac, so actually this one would have come before that. So yeah, chubby skinny, I guess is how he's doing it. I do have a critique about it as well, but it's actually about the Shuppet undershirt. So for those listeners who would have no idea what I'd say if I just said, oh, the pipeline is a bit off. Basically, when you're making a SPNatI character's art, there's a way of automating image editing called using a pipeline. It basically just means you can automatically apply different like textures or patterns or other image edits to like splice images together. I think what's happened here is he just had the image as like a flat image by itself, and so whenever Hex Maniac moves from side to side, it has that the like term for it is unmoving plaid, from how you get like animated characters with plaid patterns on their clothing, where when they move, the pattern doesn't move. And in this case, the way to actually fix that is that you just, when you're doing this automatic image editing, you have the pattern layer be attached to the character model, so that whenever the pipeline is run and it splices the pattern in, it moves with the character properly, so the pattern itself doesn't like remain fixed in place when the character does. And as Cinnayanny has actually just pointed out here, there are some images where the pattern may bleed through. I didn't actually notice that in game, so I don't know how prevalent it is. This is my first time like really paying super close attention to the pattern, hence why I didn't feedback this all back when the costume first came out. But, like, apart from that, I don't really have any issues with it. I think it's a very cute costume design, and I'm glad Spook made it. Although I'll never be able to unsee the hair thing now as well until it's fixed.
I'm sorry.
I don't really have a problem with the yellow zipper. I mean, it stands out against the purple and the other dark tones. I mean, that is the point, right? I do think that, like she said, like she doesn't have much. She doesn't wear much to bed. Well, then it's like, well, then you don't need that many layers, do you? Maya's just strolling in here with 3 layers. Who gives a fuck? She's got her panties, she's got her chemise, she's got her headpiece. It's rock and roll. But anyway, a lot of this is just comments on Maniac in general, because I didn't see too many specific costume dialogue, and overall I just thought the outfit was pretty cute and appropriately comfy for her. Seems like something she would wear. I think he did a nice job adapting all of her custom assets, like her little grabby hands and different poses, to the alt skins. You know, obviously it's a big workload. It really multiplies and compounds on itself as you add features to the base. You have to adapt it to all of them. Haunter still feels unnecessary in a lot of poses, a lot of the time, often because he's so big. A lot of his animations remain looping, where he just kind of floats around in the background endlessly. I still think that's kind of pointlessly distracting. It doesn't really convey anything that him just floating there statically could not. At least if it looped a couple times and then stopped, that would be one thing. Some of her terse lines, like someone loses and she just says, "unfortunate." They were often the funniest. On the whole, though, she did feel very improved and more balanced and more realized on the dialogue side compared to when I was covering her in testing. I thought she needed a little bit more filled out. I thought she had like the affect of the character, but not any substance. And there was a little bit more going on here now. She even talked about herself a little bit more in her sister and everything. She had a lot of prompts, which is like asking sort of an open question to the table. Not too many replies. They don't seem to be so in vogue these days. Characters used to have prompts all the time. I think you still see them a lot, but people reply less and less, I think. So that was a bit of a shame. She kind of felt like she was getting ignored because she had so many prompts. Anything else? 2 things. I don't know if this was the juice or the milk, her lactation on her fingers, but there was this one pose, if I can find it, where she had like very sticky / milky fingers. I wrote in my notes, "milky fingers." And also, was she bone dry or just pale? I couldn't tell. Her juices, they were blending into her.
I wrote in my notes, "blink, motherfucker," because she very rarely blinks, if ever.
You mean like closes her eyes?
Yeah. I don't find that much of an issue. It's just the cat thing.
Well, do you find any issue with our next character, the brand new testing roster character? Not really brand new anymore. As we said, we are a bit behind, but a new addition to the game, Vinestaff from Fighting, the Roblox game. And that's the most I'm going to say, because don't ask me to get on here. I'm nearly 30 years old and try to explain what the fuck Roblox is or how it works. Okay? I don't know. I played it once in 2010 because a friend showed me and we just fucked around and annoyed people. And I was done after 4 hours. I was like, all right, I got the full experience.
Dog, I'm not shilling shit to you.
I suspect, I have heard on the grapevine that things have changed a bit in the ensuing 16 years. Cinnayanny, why don't you share your experience? Who exactly is Vinestaff? Why did you add a Lego minifigure to the game?
I wrote so much shit. The first thing I wrote was, "God, what a fun character. I love her so much." And I still do. She's pooky. So I found Fighting. I think it's a fun little game. It's inspired by Overwatch and Splatoon.
That's Fighting with a PH, by the way.
Yeah, Fighting with a PH. because, I don't know. And I wrote my entire motive, which is a number of factors. First of all, I'm familiar with her character and how I want her voice to come with, as I've previously written fanfiction starring her. Admittedly, that isn't the best source, but I felt like I already had her voice relatively down, so if there was anyone I was going to pick, it would be her. Secondly, she's feminine. Admittedly, the characters don't have genders, I know, but she is nominally female. And I felt like if I want to get into strip poker night at the inventory writing, it would be easier to start with a character who was feminine rather than one who was masculine, because female is, for lack of a better term, the default gender. And even though there are other characters that I like more, I like her enough. And she has very quickly become one of my favorite characters. I've learned so much about her, and she's so shafted in Source. I'm so sad about that. When I was presenting her, I thought she'd
Join the
get...
club.
Sorry.
I said join the club. You love a character. You love them more because of SPNatI and they're shafted in Source. You want to do more for.
True. I thought when initially presenting her, I'd have to make a pitch for her as an April Fool's character, because this is like a stupid ass idea for most reasonable people.
Little did you know, earlier that same year, someone had suggested, I could add Cadence, the penguin from Club Penguin, and I believe my response was, you know what? Pop off, King. Show us what you've got. So you were far from, Vinestaff was far from the strangest suggestion.
I knew about the penguin, and I was like, well, that's a conventionally attractive penguin. The character who I'm presenting that is conventionally attractive, in my opinion, is a Lego minifigure.
Yeah, but can you explain a little bit more about what the setting of fighting is? Try to keep it brief, but what is Vinestaff in the context of the game, and then what are all the changes you had to make to put her in SPNatI? Which I believe includes giving her an actual gender ?
Yes. Fighting is a 5 versus 5 PvP game, and Vinestaff is one of the support characters in it. In the lore, she's a cashier / waitress at a cafe that her nominal brother runs, and she has a biological sibling. The world of fighting is kind of a shithole. It's described as currently leaving a dystopia, and frankly, if I went into it, it would be too long. The point is, she comes from a place called Thieves' Den, and she has moved to a place called Crossroads, which is where the cafe is, and she lives there. For changes, oh my god. Since she's very shafted, I try to fill in a lot of the blanks, and the ones I try to stick to are what I can already extrapolate from source, such as basically theories. I try to make a lot of my work to be source accurate, and the other one is minuscule shit that means nothing, and that if you breathe, you can disprove it, or prove it. It doesn't matter. Plus, I have to do a lot of world-building headcanons. She mentioned specifically enjoying predatory flora, so I effectively use genre conventions in order to expand on that. For instance, I believe she mentions the Nepenthes Infernalis. That doesn't exist in fighting, but it is my own headcanon of a infernal-eating flora based on the Nepenthes flower, which is the pitcher plant, and I attempted to give it a scientific name, Nepenthes Infernalis, infernal-eating Nepenthes.
Right, infernal, well, again with a PH, that's her species, right?
Yes, it's effectively analogous to demons.
Yeah, but so given how she is in the game, what did you do to put her in SPNatI?
Since the canonical game doesn't feature any sort of gender, in fact, they don't even have sexual biology, when transferring her into SPNatI, I had to use basically porn logic to be like, okay, she has a gender, she has tits now.
Is that established, like, lore that they don't have that? Or is that basically just an assumption you had to make based on how the game presents the information?
It's established lore.
Hmm.
But I effectively used porn logic, and in order to get around consent issues, I very quickly decided, you know what? There is a sex crash course, sexual education crash course at the inventory. And she had to go through that.
There is one creative decision that I'm sure you know was probably coming, but you did make the decision to keep her bald in her default look, and then after a few weeks you did eventually cave and make an alt costume where she has a wig. I do see
hair.
that. Yeah,
That's like Cadence.
just like Cadence. I did.
Just like Cadence.
Yeah, I do see a lot of fan art tends to just give her very poofy, very wavy hair, such as this one image I linked. And I see that you also went with, like, at least from the front, you can see it's very messy and unkempt. I imagine she doesn't know what to do with having hair, but I guess just briefly, what made you decide to, like, stick to the convention of keeping her bald as the default?
I'm not a fucking coward.
Based.
Okay, to explain further, I saw that SPNatI was a source that cared a lot about canon consistency, so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to stay canon consistent and stick to my guns. The sign of a good fighting fan artist is that they can draw the characters, the sign of a great one is that they draw them bald. And then eventually my man's pushed me to give her the hair as an alt outfit.
So then, why didn't you give her a merkin in the cult costume as well?
American?
It's like a wig, but for your crotch.
He's just
She
fucking with
doesn't
you.
have.
I'm messing with you if you couldn't tell. It's an actual thing, but I wasn't actually expecting you to give her one.
Okay, let's
Right.
not get into the. And we're behind enough already. I don't think we need to get into Merkins.
It also helped save. Well, it didn't help her playstats, but they're slightly better, I think. I pretend.
Cinnayanny, is there anything else you want to share about the creative decisions that you made in bringing fine staff to the game before Nord and I get into our thoughts?
I like her a lot. I want to touch on her art quickly. It was done by the infinitely talented Anders. She did a fantastic job. I described it as being a wonderful, fantastic, pussy-popping, amazing job with her. And if anyone talks smack about the art, I will explode them with my mind. My lucky ass got picked up by them and thrown on their shoulder, and I'm not getting off it anytime ever. Oh, and the gear was done by Spectators, who did the art for and writing for Maniac. And it looks nice. It's really cool.
She does look nice, but I'll let Nord speak first.
Yeah. In general, I think her art is, like, really pretty good. The model is definitely high quality. You've done a great job. You did all the posing, right? Like, you had to work out the pipeline for her arm, and you've worked out ways of saving file space by, like, using the pose maker, I remember, was something you were into.
Doing pipeline edits to her kimono pattern. Previously, it was just the sort of static pattern, and then I changed it. Currently, her arm is still a static pattern. You can definitely tell in some of her poses.
That's pretty cool.
But it's a static image. I've moved around, but I don't know how I'd apply that into proper.
I think I do have comments here about her writing. She is one of those characters that is fixated on the game itself. Like, she cares about winning or losing, and very much so halfway through the game actually switches up and seems very keen on losing. But the way she comments on the game, it's sort of hard to pin anything down specifically, but it feels like she's fixated on the game, but not in a way that can reveal more about her character yet. Like, she could have more of a visible back and forth about, I imagine, like, fighting is very competitive, so in a game like this, it's a little bit of skill, but it's mostly just luck and randomness. She seems very keen to like intentionally lose to do the forfeit as soon as she's like half undressed. I wonder if that could maybe be changed a bit so that she becomes more keen to lose only if she's like seen other people like lose and have to do the forfeit. Because otherwise it sounds like she just like remembers it exists and then becomes fixated on it all of a sudden without having actually seen it before. I have a bit more about her posing, but what do you think about that so far?
I think that's perfectly fair. I tried to have it be that, like, effectively the creeping up of arousal, in that during her middle stages, she doesn't fully recognize it and then just gets lost in the sauce.
The danger there with making it specifically stage dependent, though, is if she loses 2 or 3 times in a row, suddenly that change happens like really quickly rather than having a bit of time to simmer. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then my other critiques then are about her forfeit poses. A lot of them have like she's bending 2 fingers, but nothing is spread open. There is a way of fixing this in Kisake. There's the blue toy tab where you can actually like you have a toy to spread things open and then pause it, and then you can export that as part of the pose code and it'll be like saved in that state. So you can use that to open her up a bit if she's going to be inserting fingers.
I'll definitely
Like
have to go back and do that, because at the time that I made those poses, I had no idea that existed.
Yeah, I've been trying to spread the word of it whenever people ask about doing forfeit posing, but that surprisingly doesn't come up often. Apart from those things, I think she's generally like pretty decent. You went for sponsorship. Currently, she's not online, but when she returns, I'd hope that she gets a couple of sponsors so that you have a like broader idea of like what else she might need improvements on. But overall, I think you've got a solid foundation so far.
Thank you. I honestly fear that people are being too nice with their sponsorships.
Oh, trust me, I'll be like cruel if you want me to be when I sponsor her.
I would really appreciate that.
So it is. You gotta be your own biggest critic. Even I, the bad cop, don't have too many negative things to say here. I will say, I think using the toy tab is probably going a bit too far. I think like fingers are not that big. I think if you just like if you position the fingers so that they cover the vaginal hole, I think that does enough visually. Honestly, there doesn't need to be any extra real estate to the sides of them, as long as you spread it.
The issue is kind of that also that the hand is too high up then, so that you can just see it's not. The fingers aren't going anywhere. Yeah,
they're maybe she. I mean, she's new to this body. Maybe she's poking around in her urethra. She doesn't understand.
I did not intend.
I mean, she seems happy enough. Let her do what she wants.
Yeah.
I'll start with the writing. Actually, as you said, she was very quick to establish, like, get past the consent issues. She's very quick to establish the sex ed crash course, and she kept referring to it. That's fine. I think it's fine when people kind of make their own throwaway lore sometimes, as long as you don't go too crazy with it. Because, like, you know, it's a multi-dimensional thing. Like, you could just assume, like, it's accommodating her specifically. I think we can be pretty loosey-goosey on it, with it most of the time, and nobody will really care anymore. It is funny that, like, how many lines she has devoted to that, because, like, only fans of the original, of like the source material that she's from, would know or question why she has a female body and knowledge of sex. Otherwise, people would just roll with it.
The reason why she has so many lines dedicated to it is that people kept telling me, well, she doesn't have enough lines mentioning it. How'd she get this knowledge?
I mean, I didn't care. I thought she was just a tall, thick Dami mommy. Maybe not Dami, but she's kind of serene in that way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. she had a lot of lore to cover, as you said. Like, you had to be brief, even with how you were introducing her, with the setting and the fighting and the weapons and the gear and where she lives and all the people she knows. There's maybe too much lore to try and cover. Honestly, she does a lot of illusions. They're mostly unintrusive, so I didn't have a problem with it. She does explain a lot of the lore, which is good. I do think some of the placement of it is not the best. She has a lot of lore lines for other people stripping. I think that's kind of old school advice, like removing minor stuff like that to talk about yourself. I actually kind of disagree with that now. If you should at least kind of relate it to the other person a little bit, something they do that maybe reminds them of something to talk about, but don't just say it apropos of nothing, because then it seems like you don't care that it's their turn at all. If it's something specific to Vinestaff and nobody else, then maybe put in like a hand line or a strip line or something.
Right. I was afraid of putting everything in the headlines because that's what I previously did, and fitting in so much lore has been a struggle because a very common complaint is that I don't understand her lore. She alludes to things but never really explains. And like, there's so much. There's so much.
Well, there's also a balance of like, what does the player actually need to understand and what would be helpful versus what should just get you curious and maybe check out the source material. You don't need to explain everything over all of her lines. You really just need it as a baseline. Let's see. But yeah, writing-wise, she's polite, she's considerate, she's sincere, she's friendly, almost kind of motherly. She feels very domestic, and she's got that gardening thing going on. She feels supportive, which is good. She is a support character, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why she's dressed in a kimono. I guess that's a thing from the game. I don't know why she keeps talking about breathing exercises. Is she not used to breathing because she is usually a Lego figure?
I get the sense of just calm person who is mature, breathing exercises. I don't know why. I just think of that as like, yep, this is what people suggest. I wanted
It's fair enough.
I wanted to capture a slightly lonely person who's still friendly and exploring parts that previously were not there.
I think that works well. She asks a lot of goofy, but to her, they're reasonable questions about, body unfamiliarity. It's sort of the Twilight appeal of someone, or like Solar Flare, someone freshly in a human body who doesn't understand everything, but is pretty mature and curious about it. She asks, like, what's it like to have hair? Stuff like that. She has a lot of a platonic curiosity / encouragement before she eventually gets more into it. And that's fun to watch in its own right. I'm going to assume that was a big part of the appeal of the character for you, or if you just like the character from the source and you made it work regardless. I don't know.
I just like the character from the source, and I tried my best to make it work.
Art-wise, bald representation. You love it. Bald woman, even better. Respect it. I guess that in itself is an artistic interpretation, as we noted. I don't know exactly how many liberties were taken from the source to put her in SPNatI like this, and like all the changes you made, but she does feel very unique and appealing, just visually. She's bald, she's tall, she's kind of thick, she's kind of stocky, but she feels very open and welcoming at the same time. She's got like a Toriel vibe or something. Someone who could guide you through her setting. She has a looping fanning herself animation with her hand that seems a bit unnecessary. I think you could get that across with some after images or speed lines. She has very fun, expressive animations for some of her stripping poses, like when she gets her boots off and she kind of tap dances a little bit on the floor. Or she takes off her sash, and their kimono kind of slips open a little bit, kind of like the whole bathrobe thing, what Yuzuki also has going on.
One thing that people have mentioned with that is that, her clothes don't fit her. No, that's just how clothes work in real life. If you take off the sash, it falls.
Her arm, her cursed arm, which we have not mentioned up to this point, I think it's like half transformed into a plant or something. I don't know why it's like that, but it's pretty well done. It doesn't look too jank attached to her body or anything. Also, I was surprised that she could kind of move it. I thought it was like a Dunbon, but it just hurts apparently. I don't know how she got that if she tried to wield the Monado.
She
I'll
was
have to
born
explain.
with a wooden arm and she can't really feel with it. And I had to come up with a reason why she thinks it's cursed, which was the locking up thing. And then new law dropped, so then I had to put in a justification for my own justification, which is that she's placeboing herself.
I believe that's called a voodoo shark on TV tropes, where the explanation requires more explanation. I have two last notes here. The first is don't kneel at the end of the masturbation or ever. Sucks. You just keep her knees up, much better. Oh, and I also write, I think she's bone dry. In this pose, she is, at least for part of it. You gotta get those juices flowing. That part of her is not made of wood. The last thing I noted here is so she came to the inventory and like the powers that be gave her this human body, right?
Yes.
So I wrote here, why did they give her inverted nipples? Are they stupid?
That's just how the art was done.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about nipples.
Why would you do that to someone if you are creating their body for them to use? Why would you give them a defect like that? Don't they hurt?
Because it's hot.
I don't understand you people. I don't understand you, Nord. I don't know why you. I mean, with Yuzuki, it's like she's got enough problems going on, and with Vinestaff here, I don't understand. Why can't nipples just be normal? Who looks at a girl's fat titties with her normal nipples and like this isn't good enough? I got to make sure they're a bit painful for her as well, and she can't breastfeed properly.
She's not going to be breastfeeding, so it's no problem.
You don't know. Maybe she might stay a while. Anyway, are there any final comments on Vinestaff? I like her a lot. You know, not perfect, but I think overall pretty strong first showing as a character. I liked her. She felt unique and different and stood out.
Yeah, I think you've done a good job so far.
Thank you.
You mess with the bald, you get the horns. Okay, we ready to end things off? We have a final character to talk about today, a main roster edition. This is Fischl from Genshin Impact, whose full name is, it certainly exists, and it is long and loquacious like the rest of her. I could give her a more eloquent introduction because she is a chuny, and her lines certainly reflect that. But as I said, we are a bit behind, so I think we should probably just keep getting on going. Fischl changed hands a few times. I think it was originally a project by Remilia, and now Cavendish has picked her up and gotten her over the finish line. But that's her main thing. She's there we go. Fischl von Luftschloss Narfadort, Prinzessin der Verurteilung.
Fischl von Wuschloss Narfendorf, Princesse de Verteilung.
Cool, sure. Listen, write it in Japanese. I can pronounce that. Okay, I don't fuck with this. But yeah, that's her whole thing. She's one of those. She's a lot like, she's cut from the same cloth as Zeke in Pandora, where she's a chuny who has actual powers, but her chuniness exceeds her powers, I guess, even still. And she's got her dark raven friend here, Oz, who translates her more poetic lines for her. But yeah, that's what she's got going on. She's here to expand her horizons and her empire, which all exists in her head. Cinnayanny, what did you think of Fischl now that she is officially on the main roster?
She loves to yap. Okay, I have better thoughts on her. I think she's a very fun character and she's well written, but frankly, Genshin characters have the issue of that they have one gimmick, and if that gimmick's annoying, the whole character becomes annoying. I think Fischl leans a little too hard into her gimmick, but she does that in Source too, so I can't really hold it against her. The biggest flaw I have is that I use dark mode for my gameplay, and her dialogue, like, I can't read 2/3 of her dialogue. I can't read Oz's dialogue, and I can't read her whispering dialogue. I can't read her special dialogue. it's really hard to read, and maybe that's a skill issue on my part, but I think there should be a little thing to help make it readable. Her model's very well done.
People are able to define dark mode text styles. I had to do that for Zeke and Pandy. So maybe that could be fixed.
Her art's very well done, especially her side smile pose, which was done by Stealth BE, who always does high quality things. But also her general art is impressive. They've captured a lot of details on, which is impressive, especially since she's a Genshin model, and they're very over-designed, in my very humble opinion. But she has default underwear, so I have to dock points from that. That's about it.
They are ornate and often asymmetrical. They have a lot going on. But yeah, I should mention as well that extreme flex pose of the ass and twist that was done by Stealth PE, who has been on a roll of making similar poses for all sorts of characters, mostly Cavendish's stuff. He has hired him out. He's the dev of Serena, who is we'll talk about her getting the main in a future episode as well. But she obviously has a lot of custom drawn stuff going on, and it looks very good. But yeah, Nord.
Yeah, as you touched on, she has changed hands a few times. Cavendish has adopted her. She was over halfway complete as one of Remilia's characters, but before she's stopped showing up around here, Remilia did do a lot of work on a lot of Genshin characters, including Ganyu as well. So it's good that Cavendish has essentially finished the work with this. The model was done by a couple of people. Horse Killer, Ninja Monkey 4200, and Purple Kuroi, and then Stealth PE has contributed these poses.
I was just navigating there because I wrote in my notes 1 million artists.
I think.
Oh yeah, it was she was actually added to the game just 1497 days ago.
Yeah,
several years.
Yeah, so it's good to see her get finished off. I plan to accost Cavendish for banter between her and Zeke and Pandoria. They're going to make the inventory explode with their sheer Chunabu nature. Overall, for all of the Hoyoverse characters, which I think at this point is literally just Genshin so far, all of the art has been really high quality to match, at the very least, a good adaptation of how it is in Source. I know that Fischl has alternate designs that I don't imagine are easy to make costumes for. But fun fact, her real name is Amy. I forget if I said that already. I think she's a very cute, goofball character. Definitely one of the worrier characters by design. She is always going to over-explain or over-comment on something. Characters like that, you do sort of tune them out if you're not really focusing on them. But at the very least, she's very cute to look at then, even if you ignore what she says. Overall, I think Cavendish did a really good job finishing her off. I can't quite recall how much is new, because I remember she was almost a complete character already by the time Cavendish adopted her. I think that about sums up how I feel about her, just from the test game I did.
We seem to be unanimous, because I also wrote that I did not read a lot of her lines. I wrote talking, but to be fair, that is the point. When I do read them, the lines and opinions that she shares are indeed very fun. When you actually parse them. Her insecurity, which she often shows towards the end, is very sweet. She feels, appropriately kind of young and immature, but not completely kiddie. She's just striking out into the world and putting up a bit of a barrier. She frames everything very poetically, even when she's sitting on her ass naked. I also wrote a big note, move arrow, the speech bubble arrow, when Oz is talking. I did not notice his head at first because it's pretty dark against the background. And he's not really animated. So you want to move it over him when he's talking. And if they're both talking, I like to split and put and like average it between their heads' locations. I always do that. I know it's a bit of a pain, but it's good to help communicate visually that they're both talking. Now Nord's going to code like a double speech bubble arrow.
Technically already possible through CSS trickery.
As I said, the evolution of features. She has a cute dynamic with Oz, though. He's like kind of her caretaker. He like kind of keeps her in line. Art-wise, again, very ornate outfit. It doesn't seem to change much between the early stages. That can be a problem that a lot of big design characters have. They have a lot of little baubles they take off that aren't really that interesting. Nice ass stealth, I wrote, and nice job doing it on every stage. That seems like a bit of a flex. I want to see your naked ass. I don't care about the rest. But good job. It's almost too good, I wrote. Like it's very clearly like referenced from a pinup drawing and just drawn. It looks good, obviously, but it does kind of stand out as like, you didn't make that in Kisekai. That's very clearly a real life woman that you referenced. But I mean, it's good.
I don't even think so. I think it's from like 2D fan art of other characters.
Shut up! Don't contradict me.
So yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
And finally, I wrote a bigger comma pose, more lead up dialogue. I expected a more chuny orgasm. She was pretty muted. Good stuff though. Overall, good stuff. Good character. I like her. Good job, Amy. Good job, Cavendish. Okay, I think that's going to do it. Do we have any final comments on Amy / Fischl / Vinestaff / Hexxtra Sleepy Hex, or are we ready to conclude things for episode 124?
My one thing is that Oz, for Fischl, Oz is drawn very differently. Like, he looks good, but he looks a bit odd sitting on her shoulder.
I guess the outlines are thicker.
Yeah.
I think Fischl is cute. And I agree, she should be more dramatic about her climax.
Yeah, finally show off those powers at the very end. Yeah, I think I wrote that. It's like, it's kind of intentional for her to like have the chuny angle to like never show any of her actual like electrical powers, even though she has them. But yeah.
I think, just very briefly, that touches on a thing with a lot of characters where if they're going to make wild claims, you really should at least just find an excuse to have them demonstrate it. Like, don't have a character say, "Oh, I can use all this magical power," and then, like, just give them a pose called, like, magic or demonstrate or something. It's a lot of fun. I've done it a lot.
Give them a pose called Summon Keyblade.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Me adding the summon and desummon to Vinestaff's fine staff.
Yeah, you did a great job with that with Vinestaff.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Cinnayanny, and thanks, as always, Nord. I think we're going to wrap things up here. Since we're already behind, I'm just going to cut.
Bye.
Waveform.
Okay, I do see you.
Sphinx of black quartz, judge my vow.
Is that from Xenoblade?
No, that's just one of those phrases like the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. He has every letter in it.
That doesn't really matter much for speech, though, right? What's a good speech testing phrase?
Mic check.
Mike's not here.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
This is all staying in, by the way.